Yo, the second largest bank in the world has been exposed for quietly buying more Bitcoin. The $3.14 trillion giant Goldman Sachs is now the second biggest holder of BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF after their most recent SEC filing. In my 9 years in Bitcoin, I've never seen such a perfect storm for a Bitcoin bull run setup, because at the same time, we have the biggest bank in the world. They're all quietly positioning themselves for Bitcoin. Also, the new MicroStrategy copycats going public. And of course, US publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies mining all the Bitcoin. All of this is happening at the same time. And I think the price is starting to reflect that just a little bit. Before we get to exploring the geopolitical Bitcoin race and how the most recent trade deals play into it, let's break down the most recent news. And of course, we have an incredibly special guest joining us today. We have the executive chairman of Hive Digital Technologies, Mr. Frank Holmes, in the house, joining us on Simply Bitcoin today. Frank, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we're all repping our Hive gear. Got the Hive vest. Opti's got the Hive hat. Anyways, no more delay. Let's jump straight into today's article.
And I have my buddy. So when the bear market was happening, the correction, that's what I held on to. Stay long.
Always stay long in Bitcoin. This is wisdom. Anyways, here is the article. Goldman Sachs raises BlackRock Bitcoin Trust stake to $1.4 billion amid JP Morgan MicroStrategy. And it goes on to say Goldman Sachs has increased its stake in BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF by 28%, now holding 30.8 million shares valued at approximately $1.4 billion, alongside an additional 250 million in FBTC shares, according to SEC filings. BlackRock currently holds $67 billion worth of crypto assets in its portfolio and has stated that Bitcoin will soon be too risky not to own. And then that's the first question to you, Frank. Is Bitcoin too risky not to own at this point in the movie, specifically now that the regulatory environment has cleared up?
No, I think it trades much higher for a host of reasons. Global monetary policies and global fiscal policies. Because I believe that as a money manager, the government policies are a precursor to change. And we're witnessing tectonic plate shifts happening in fiscal policies and a ramp up in M2. When we look at Chindia, effectively known as China and India, which is 40% of the world's population, has their M2 growing at close to 10%. That's very bullish.
Absolutely. And then Frank, what's your take on the whole trading, the trade deals that are happening worldwide? It seems like that had a huge effect on markets. It caused a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you could make the case that we just went through a 3 to 4 month kind of weird bear market, sideways action. How did Hive plan to capitalize on that moment?
Just stay focused. That's all. Stay focused on building out and scaling our operations in Paraguay. And then the windfall opportunity happened when Bitfarms wanted to lower their risk there with buying an asset in the US. That became a game changer for us to really truly accelerate a 4x in our growth in exahash.
So one of the things that I love, Frank, that when we talked at Mining Disrupt is the way that you guys described yourselves. You guys described yourselves as lean and mean, the Navy SEALs of Bitcoin mining. You never sleep on performance. That is a big claim. What do you mean by that?
Well, it means that our model is very much like what they call a gold royalty business, or in technology, a SaaS model. And so you need to have a small elite group of people that can multitask in their duties and responsibilities. And that's what Hive has. So Hive is doing more than 6 million in revenue per employee and will quickly climb here to over 10 million in revenue per employee. And you compare that to companies like NVIDIA, which is 3.5 million, or Apple, which is 2.5 million. And Goldman Sachs is like 1.5 million. So we are very focused on the revenue per employee. And we've been able to manage all these downdrafts we've had, these incredible, vicious bear market cycles. We always had operating income because we do not have a huge number of direct employees.
How did you manage to build such a large company with only, I believe it's only 25 employees. Is that correct, Frank?
That's correct. And it's about those that are resilient and, like Navy SEALs training, are able to go and do two things. One is deal with stakeholders. You have a host of different stakeholders and interests. When you go to Mining Disrupt, they're a complete different audience of where you're buying equipment from, to dealing with shareholders, institutional versus retail. At the same time, you're an electrical engineer or you're a computer science major, and you have to do the coding for the growth. So all the team players have to be able to multitask.
So states like Arizona and New Hampshire, and this was last week actually, just passed. Essentially, they announced that they're releasing a strategic Bitcoin reserves. They're codifying that into law. It was signed by the governor. How do you see this trend influencing federal policy, and how might it impact Hive's operations?
Well, I think that Hive's operations in the future is looking for opportunities in America. Where it's a safe jurisdiction now. There'll be regulatory rules coming with it, but we're here looking in America in addition to building out. But first and foremost is to get to that 25 exahash in Paraguay over the next 6 to 7 months, because these trade tariff wars and battles, they do disrupt the supply of equipment and the movement of trade and equipment. And so we want to make sure we just stay focused on building out, delivering for the shareholders what we said we would deliver. And it's on track. Every 2 weeks, we'll be increasing an exahash here. So we're very excited about this growth, this path, this journey from 6 exahash to 25 exahash. We're at 7.5 and growing. On the weekend, we grew.
So you mentioned that a U.S. Bitcoin reserve could trigger global adoption shift. What steps should be taken to realize this vision?
I just think you just be long and buy the dips. Even if you have to buy at $1,000, is going to give you almost 1 million Satoshis at Robinhood. So you go buy, and you go buy HODL, VanEck ETF. And I think that HODL is one of those products that it doesn't cost you much to get a play on owning. If every week you spend $1,000 or every month you spend $1,000, you can accumulate a beautiful position that over time, and you can't say you can't afford a Bitcoin today, but you can turn around and start buying Satoshis.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Opti, do you have any questions for Frank?
No, not really. I do kind of want to talk about the Goldman Sachs story. So if you want to ask some more questions, then I can chime in.
Make your point about Goldman Sachs, and then I'll get back to Frank.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. So I find this Goldman Sachs story super interesting. And someone in the chat said it, and I have been saying something similar. Let me see if I can find it. It's basically like the idea of, the bank. Here we go. Goldman Sachs, the BTC fudders. It was always true. They just wanted cheaper prices. And I think this is a growing trend we're seeing right now, where I was actually thinking about this morning with all this news going on and all of these like really big names getting into Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm not like the biggest cheerleader of a Goldman Sachs, but it's truer and truer than ever that I think Bitcoin has definitely gotten that legitimacy here. And the fact that they're buying, billions of dollars of Bitcoin, obviously it's in the ETF. They just want exposure, but they're doubling down 28%, holdings in this IBIT. They're the biggest Bitcoin ETF holder now. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't get into Bitcoin to get for the banks to buy Bitcoin. But I think this is just further proof that if you're watching this show and you're not fully all in Bitcoin, then you really don't understand the game being played right now. The fact we're seeing Goldman Sachs go this deep and this hard into, even though it's a BlackRock ETF, I think is growing trend of what we're seeing right now. There has been a lot of talks, especially like Frank was explaining, it talks about the trade war. there seems to be a move away from this like unipolar American dominance in the world, and it seems to be going towards a multipolar direction. And I think BlackRock is leading this charge. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, you know, it's up for debate, but we are seeing something play out very interesting where BlackRock is the leader. You know, they got their whole marketing team out there pushing Bitcoin. We have the biggest banks, biggest institutions in the world starting to embrace Bitcoin. And it really just begs the question, like, what are people looking at if they're not seeing this news and being like, oh, I need to study Bitcoin? And I guess this might bring a question for Frank here. You know, you are more on the public, you know, Bitcoin company side than we are. We just cover the news. But are you starting to see a growing trend and more of an interest from people that probably historically were against Bitcoin? Because it seems like a no-brainer from our perspective, but obviously we're biased here. We're fully Bitcoin. You know, all this good news just makes us even more bullish. But I want to argue, or at least it seems that the growing trend around Bitcoin is no longer this, you know, risky thing to own. It's like Larry Fink said himself, it's risky not to own at this point. So are you having new conversations? I know you're in more like investor circles, people that aren't necessarily just Bitcoiners. So is the trend changing around Bitcoin from your perspective?
Yes, I think there's much more curiosity of what are the drivers behind it. And usually I get this pushback on, well, it's gone already. I missed it. And then try to explain to them, no, one Bitcoin's 100 million Satoshis. And when you only spend $1,000 buying a Bitcoin ETF, you're buying Satoshis, and you're getting a play on something that's going to give you this unique protection. And this is the more technical person. But when I talk to say the wealthier retail person doesn't grasp, is still skeptical, I tell them it's about liberty. It's about private property rights, digital private property rights. And when I was speaking last week at Weiss's investment group, crypto group in Florida, I said to them, you know, if you thought you missed the move, then pay attention. This all came from the gamers and that were young now coders. They were into digital, in the digital realm. That's where you're going to get the next big play. And you have to have an open, curious mind. And that was what resonate the most. Then they start asking, well, then how do you go? Where do you go buy? What do you buy, etc. But that's not my job to tell them, you know, go buy this. I just think that when I read articles like HODL, they've waived all their fees, and they're very much into the crypto ecosystem. That it makes really the ticker I like, hold on for dear life, because that's what you've had to do by being a Bitcoiner. And I try to articulate to people to understand that when something's new, the volatility, the DNA of volatility of a new asset class is always substantially greater. And now what's happening with covered right programs, that they're able to sell calls against that vol. A trader was telling me that the new Viagra is volatility for the capital markets, and selling calls against this. So the Bitcoin ETF BTCI basically has a 16% coupon that pays monthly, because the volatility is good for selling calls against it. Like MicroStrategy has a single purpose ETF that sells calls against that to give you a dividend income. So it's directional of MicroStrategy, which is directional of Bitcoin up and down. But in that volatility, they sell calls against it. So the markets really evolve very, very quickly. It's unprecedented to see what took 10 years to get 50 billion into GLD has taken 10 months to get 50 billion into Bitcoin ETFs, which only have incredible growth.
I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 1,600 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X. I do want to give a shout out to the Rumble audience. We have been being featured on the Rumble front page as of late. So shout out to the Rumble platform. We absolutely love it here at Simply Bitcoin. Guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 200 likes by the time the show ends. Of course, you're listening to Nico and our special guest today, Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman at Hive Digital Technologies. I have a question for you, Frank, and I think a lot of people are thinking this. It seems like Bitcoin is on the up and up again. Once again, we had like a 3-4 month kind of micro bear market. What is your future outlook for the rest of the year, for the next 12 months, and how is Hive preparing to navigate it?
Well, I think that Bitcoin and alternative asset classes will capture more and more of importance in everyone's diversified portfolio, especially the baby boomers like myself. What portion should be? In the world of gold, it was always, have a 10% weighting in gold, and now it's going to become Bitcoin. And what happens if it's 2%, 5% of your overall diversified portfolio, that you have other investments? And out of nowhere comes this BTCI, and it's giving you income, because one of the big sort of rules of investing is having many sources of income, not relying on one asset class, and not looking just for dividend paying stocks for them paying dividends every year, increasing them for the past 20 years. There's special products for that. All of a sudden, we have a Bitcoin income ETF. I think it's very, very special what's going on. Now, Hive is going to be positioned to expand its footprint and then rebuild our hodl position, because we've had to use some of our Bitcoin to acquire Bitfarms assets and fast track our huge scaling program.
But you still, Hive, I believe, still holds over 2,000 Bitcoin, if my memory serves me correctly. Is that correct, Frank?
We have a strong position in Bitcoin, and we have a unique structure of how we acquired Bitfarms operations. So we do have a strong hodl position. And so that's what we're very happy about. We're finishing our year end March 31st. So it's sensitive of how I talk and give great granularity on numbers, because we have to wait till they're into the public domain. But what's really important is this growth profile that Hive was lacked, because we couldn't find big sources of green energy, but we have it now. And now we're fast tracking this explosive growth in Paraguay. And now, coming back, I want to answer your question. I think in this cycle under President Trump that we will see Bitcoin probably go through $250,000 to $1 million, and we'll see gold go through $6,000 as the G20 countries around the world start their money printing again to try to ignite their economies and rebalance with all the trade deals that are going to be done in the next 90 days. So I think that that reset button is going to take place. And when we take a look at the new guard versus the old guard, there's going to be a lot of money printing, and there's also be a lot of money spent on armaments to protect against what China's been doing on the one road, one belt around the world. Is really one belt of communism is the great concern. Well, that means there's much more money being spent on cybersecurity protection, the use of AI. So that means there's money printing. Well, that's very, very good for Bitcoin. And for people that are central bankers that of my age, they feel more comfortable owning gold. So I see both, but I see much more upside in Bitcoin. And I see that it's just important, if you don't own some in a portfolio, I think that you're at risk. You're foolish not to own it, and learn that it has a DNA of volatility. Buy in the down days.
I do want to give a shout out once again to the live stream, on the verge of breaking 2,000 live viewers, 500 live viewers on YouTube alone. Of course, Rumble is absolutely popping off. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, smash that like button. Again, we're joined with Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. And so much to unpack in what you just said, Frank. And I want to talk about this current administration. And you're essentially making the case that it is extremely positive for the price of Bitcoin. This current administration, it is going to take Bitcoin to new heights. You're saying $250,000 Bitcoin, potentially $500,000 Bitcoin by the time of Trump's end of term. Is that correct?
Correct. And it can happen faster if other sort of tectonic plate shifts happen, where there's an imbalance between monetary and fiscal policies of the G20 countries. So it's really recognizing that. But here's a great line. Warren Buffett doesn't like Bitcoin, doesn't understand it, with all respect, but doesn't matter. He's a phenomenal investor. He just retired at the age of 94. And how did he build his wealth? He said, hodl, buy the dip. So he goes into this, before this sell off of the stocks this year, he has $345 billion in cash. What's he looking for? Buy great America. He's made his wealth by buying into the greatest nation in the world. Well, the greatest capitalist nation in the world, America, is now long Bitcoin, is now supporting Bitcoin. So it makes it just even more bullish that you buy the dip and you hold on through these corrections.
Absolutely. Buy the dip, hodl for dear life. Opti, have any thoughts, any questions for Frank?
No, I just want to kind of echo what Frank was saying, especially considering the, potential of this new regulatory environment. They seem to be kind of pushing towards this light touch approach here. It's hard not to be bullish right now. And I know we are kind of watching the price right now. We're almost at all-time high again. We're back above 100K. Everyone's wondering what's going on with the price. I'm like, it's testing a support level. This is super healthy, but it's hard not to be really bullish on just Bitcoin going crazy right now. It really feels like it's about to explode. But I think Frank's wisdom there is what we all kind of experience. It's like, don't really focus on the price. Yes, we love to watch the price. It makes us feel good. We get the dopamine flowing, but you just want to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. As everyone in the chat knows, I say, we're playing Hungry Hippo here. You just want to acquire as much as you can, however you can. And in time, you will be feeling really good about it. It does feel like a lot of the conservative price predictions that people were giving this year are going to get blown out of the water. So I really like Frank's, $250,000, $500,000 Bitcoin predictions. Those sound great to me.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the numbers segment, one last thing I want to bring up, other than the Paraguay announcement, which was absolutely massive, we're going to be covering during the culture segment. Another huge thing that Hive did this year is that you guys announced that you're moving your headquarters to the great state of Texas. Could you talk a little bit about that, Frank?
Yes, well, one of the parts is now America so pro Bitcoin and will usher in regulations for it. It's just a much safer jurisdiction. And so we feel very comfortable. And Hive functions and has been functioning over 9 time zones every day, 5 languages. So we feel now it's so important to be in America. So we moved it here. But the intellectual capital, a lot of it's in Canada, will stay there. But the head office being here and looking to expand our operations in America, it's full throttle.
100%, and I love that. Some people are commenting in the chat. I have the same Hive hat. People love the Hive merch, Frank. It's going off the shelves. People love the Hive merch. The black Hive hat, the white Hive hat. I saw my dad wearing it the other day. He was wearing the blue one. It comes in all different colors. Anyways, guys, it's going to be a jam-packed show. We have tons to talk about, lots to get to. In the culture segment, we're going to be talking about an interesting trend. It seems like there was a huge drawdown in the kind of the big 7 tech stocks, and it seems like Bitcoin was able to shoulder that a little bit better than everything else. And also an interesting post by TFTC. Only 4% of Americans think Bitcoin is the best long-term investment. So we still have a long way to go. It seems like real estate, it seems like most people still think real estate is a better idea. Gold also, people still think it's a better idea. So we're going to make a contrary case as to why I think Bitcoin is the best long-term investment. And then during the culture segment, we're going to be talking about all things Hive, new updates coming from Hive Digital Technologies. So guys, stay tuned. Before we jump into today's show, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about the best place to build a self-custody Bitcoin stack, Bitcoin. bitcoinwell.com. To get started, scan the QR code on your screen or go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. You put in your email address. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. Bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. When you make your first purchase on Bitcoin Well, you automatically, using the link bitcoinwell.com/simply, you automatically get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. And essentially what that is every time you toss a coin into the wishing well, which we're going to be doing live for you guys on air right now, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. Get your Lightning wallets ready. And first person to scan the QR code has won 556 sats today. Again, if you use promo code simplybtc or go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, you make your first purchase, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well, and every single toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. That's like $1,000 these days. Anyways, guys, bunker in. It's going to be a great show. Smash the like button. We have tons of content. We'll be right back in just a second. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $102,980. Block height, 896,433. Sats per dollar, 971 sats per dollar. Under 1,000 sats per dollar. That's amazing. Market cap, 2.05 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, almost at 10%, sitting at 9% currently. Percentage issued, 94.58%. Decline from all-time high, negative 5.7%. If you buy Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a close to a 6% discount, and the realized monetary inflation, 0.85%. Anyways, the thing that I wanted to talk about today, I found it an interesting subject, and let's break down the data. Only 4% of Americans think Bitcoin is the best long-term investment. Real estate leads at 37%, followed by gold at 23%. According to a new Gallup poll, the rest of the country hasn't woken up yet. I think that's an opportunity, in my humble opinion. Frank, what do you think? Do you believe that Bitcoin is a better long-term investment than real estate and gold? And if you do, why?
Well, as a money manager, I have to talk about being diversified. So I really think that people have to include Bitcoin in part of their diversification. And if they own gold, then they should be long Bitcoin. That's very simple. But what's interesting to me in this data point that's come out is that, in fact, the GLD is greatly underweighted as a percentage of overall ETF assets. And so that would be interesting when you look at where that world is going towards gold as an asset class. In the digital realm, mem coins, we look at anything just in addition to Bitcoin. You think of the Web3 environment. When I was in Paris Blockchain Week, there's 9,000 people. 9,000. You can't get 9,000 people for an ETF conference that includes institutional to retail investors. It's not happening. And how big will Vegas be? 20,000? And so there's something else that's happening. And I think that we hear Fink talking from BlackRock keeps talking about tokenizing all the real estate, tokenizing all securities, because this market of Bitcoin trades 24/7. It happens all around the world, but stocks don't. So if you start to tokenize and you brought in regulations to trade 24/7, that would be the big game changer of seeing people all of a sudden wake up to say Bitcoin is a significant, important asset class that I have to own.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think? What do you think, Frank? We heard this. We've heard this from BlackRock. It was coming out that BlackRock was essentially making the case that because you were talking about as an asset manager, it's all about diversifying. It's all about asset allocation. What do you think about BlackRock's recommendation? 2% allocation to Bitcoin. Is that too little? Is that too much? What's your opinion?
I think that's just a perfect start for someone that's skeptical about anything new. But I think it's also wise to have 5% or 10%. It depends on that vision you have. But I was doing some research on the weekend and was really interesting about cannabis and the adoption of cannabis over alcohol, expensive wines versus buying cannabis, and how it's shifted with generations. So when we look at demographics and we look at people under the age of 40, there's a big move to not drink at all, to be healthier, or if you want to go and chill out, to go to cannabis. So as we go to people in their 20s, there's a higher percentage of the adoption of cannabis than alcohol. Also, the adoption of Web3 to stocks.
So there's a shift. There's a generational shift that's happening, and I'm trying to connect the dots here. Do you believe that's going to apply to essentially how different generations see different asset classes?
Yes, absolutely. We saw this if you look back and connecting the dots with mutual funds. Mutual funds really took off in the 80s because they could pay you a money market rate of 20% on your treasury bills, whereas the banks weren't able, or they weren't. And so all billions of dollars started flowing into mutual funds, and it became mainstay. And then along came ETFs, which allowed to be able to trade around a basket of holdings. So you see these things take place, and you do have age, but the demographic thing is quite significant because the transfer of wealth from baby boomers, my vintage, over to your vintage is trillions of dollars. And your age and your savings and your speculation is much more accepting of the digital realm than my age. But we're going to be transferring wealth to you. So I think it's just a huge super cycle that we have. Like they talk about data centers and AI and use of energy, and AI is a super cycle in technology. So is Web3, all on the backbone and the success of Bitcoin, with 21,000 nodes around the world, validating, supporting the ecosystem, Bitcoin miners validating, supporting the ecosystem all over the world. And now America basically saying, we want to be the leaders from Bitcoin mining. We want to be the leaders with the innovation and all the collateral that goes along the success of the Bitcoin blockchain ecosystem is extremely bullish.
So speaking of leaders in innovation, I know Hive Digital Technologies was the first publicly traded Bitcoin miner. How did you see that? How did you see the opportunity? What year was this, Frank?
It was 2017, and the idea of creating a Bitcoin ETF. But I realized quickly it wasn't going to happen back then due to the regulatory concerns and KYC and anti-money laundering laws. So when you're mining, guess what? You create the virgin coin. You do not have this AML or KYC problem. You are creating the coins and you start to stack them on your balance sheet. So I said, okay, well, let's launch Hive. And we put up the first $5 million institutionally. I said I would go on the board as the chairman, and away we were. And we had the great support of Fidelity, who were very early in that whole process, and they invested in and when we went public in September of 2017. It's only a year ago that the Bitcoin ETF came out. So thank God I wasn't holding my breath in the launching of it. And then we went down this journey of being green only, and being first to balance the grid, first to buy our own real estate and develop the data centers, and first to really go out into the AI business. And that's starting to really expand rapidly.
The AI is absolutely exploding, but I do want to go back to the early days, because I do remember the 2017 era. It was like the Wild West. But before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 2,700 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X. And of course, shout out to the Rumble audience. Absolutely love Rumble, featuring Simply Bitcoin on the front page more these days. Appreciate the platform. I think we're going to be doing, I don't know if I could say this out loud, but let's just say, Simply and Rumble at the Bitcoin conference should be a lot of fun. Anyways, Frank, back to you. So I want to talk about the early days, 2017. I remember those days were absolutely crazy. That was the Wild West of Bitcoin back then. It was not like it is today. It wasn't BlackRock saying, hey, we're getting into this. Goldman, we're getting into this. It was the Wild West era, Frank.
Yes, and Bitcoin was 3,000 and Ethereum was 300. Very, very different overall scope of what's going on. And I remember going in 2017 to Consensus and seeing the keynote speaker being Abigail Johnson, who was a technology analyst when she first started, but she's a CEO of Fidelity. This is why she doesn't speak at a normal ETF investment conference, but she's speaking at a blockchain crypto event. That was a big wake-up call, and saying that she had been mining in Quebec. So that was part of that whole my journey of saying something big is happening. And she was very early, and Fidelity was very early to show the significance of the blockchain and the vision that she had that all stock transactions will be done on the blockchain. So that would stop illegal shorting. That would stop failed settlements. Everything would be seamless. So I think she's a real thought leader.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to hit the culture segment. We're going to have updates for you guys on Hive. We'll be right back.
Hey, Nico, can I say something real quick about this? This just goes to show that we are still early. And obviously, you guys know I've been kind of trolling. I love any data that confirms my bias here. And I'm not sure who, the demographic is on this survey, but I think it really paints a picture of what Frank said. Like the younger generations, I'm sure they're not doing this Gallup poll here. And we all know that if you're, under 35 or whatever, it's probably a greater, percentage of the demographic that is all in on Bitcoin or, cryptos or whatever you want to call it. We're much more open to this. But the older generation, they still have a learning curve. And this is what I always say when you go out and talk to normal people. It really does feel like only 4% of the population even has a semblance of an understanding of what's going on with Bitcoin. So I love seeing this data because it does confirm my bias. I go talk to people, you bring up Bitcoin and they're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, did you watch the game or whatever? So it just goes to show we are still early here. And I'm sure those numbers will rise very dramatically coming in the next couple of years. But it really paints a picture that it's going much higher. There's not that many people in Bitcoin. And even in the people that are kind of exposed to it, they probably don't understand the full monetary revolution going on. So keep stacking. We're still early. Bitcoin is extremely underpriced.
We're very early. You're absolutely right. And those surveys are like political surveys, biased about who's going to win the elections. We saw that. And we're seeing this, that is predominantly baby boomers that survey's been done with. So I totally concur with what you're saying.
Guys, it's going to be a great show. I can't believe I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for this transfer that Frank is talking about. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a totally different world. I think the younger generations, as Frank and Opti are talking about, I think they're just going to be interested in completely different assets. I think that's just a generational thing, and it's to be very, very exciting times, these next 10, 20 years or so. Anyways, guys, stay tuned. We're going to hit the culture segment. We're going to be talking all things Hive. We'll be back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Hive Digital Technology. Why Hive in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, Hive's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, Hive's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledin has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledin is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today. All right, everybody, we are back, and we're going to talk about all things Hive. And of course, joining us today is Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. We're about to break 3,000 live viewers on the live show. Smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. We are literally about to break our goal of 200 likes, so I'm going to up it to 250 likes by the time the show ends. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. 500 live viewers on YouTube alone. Anyways, Frank's got the I've never seen that hat before. He's got the burgundy.
This is the Harvard hat, but it was the most popular swag at Paris Blockchain Week.
I don't have that one.
Everyone was wearing this one in the Louvre and touring around. So the color was beautiful.
That one's my favorite one. I don't have that one. I have the white one. I have the black one. I have the blue one, but I don't have the burgundy one. That one looks really, really cool. Anyways, guys, all updates on all things Hive. So first off, congratulations, Frank. Hive smashes 7 exahashes in hash rate after commencing operations in Paraguay. Hive hit 7.3 exahashes, up 10% month over month, with plans to reach 11.5 exahashes by June and 18 exahashes by the end of the summer, adding 1 exahash every few weeks. You want to talk a little bit about that, Frank?
Yeah, we're so excited about this rapid expansion. And we should be through every 2 weeks coming out with
wait, hold on, Frank. That's an understatement. Rapid expansion, rapid undersells. This is like super expand. This is like ultra level, super speed expansion.
Well, our goal is to get back up to 3% of the world Bitcoin network on a daily production. So we're on that path. And I think the strategic acquisition of Bitfarms' Paraguayan assets supports this rapid scaling using hydropower. So it's working. We had some big cost savings. We had extra machines that we had called buzz miners. That was the unique deal we did with Intel, where we created our own ASIC chip with them. So we had a surplus of those, and so we were able to quickly repurpose those, send them down to Paraguay, and start plugging them in. And so every 2 weeks, in addition to the cannons that are coming in, the Bitmains that are coming in, we were able to redeploy something that adds up to almost $30 million of CapEx spending we didn't have to worry about to fast track the growth.
Yeah, and then that's something that we were talking about before, right? How you were able to save, I think it was $30 million worth of equipment by essentially just redeploying existing miners. And one of the things also too that was really interesting to me, Frank, and you were talking about it earlier, is that even miners that perhaps would essentially be, with today's mining difficulty, would essentially be worthless. Some of those are still useful if the electricity price is low enough. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's the key driver. When you look at the cost of everything, it really is the cost of electricity. And there's a simple matrix you can get for every type of machine, ASIC machine, and what price do they break even. And you can see that the magic number is like 2 cents, but it's hard to get anything at 2 cents on scale. So some small operations, they're able to take old machines and reuse them. So we said, let's not waste anything. Let's get them sent down right away to Paraguay.
Incredible. So another thing that I wanted to talk about as well is that Hive produced 102 Bitcoin in April, 404 year to date, targeting 6 Bitcoin a day by end of June as new miners come online. That's a lot of Bitcoin, Frank.
Yes, it is. And what we're happy with is that our production did go up, but we got to remember the global hash rate also went up. So that means less Bitcoin for everyone competing. So it's much more competitive looking for that Bitcoin. So you have to be like running and training for a marathon. You have to be able to continuously increase your production profile to stay ahead. And so that's what we've been able to do. And we're happy about it when we see this full path over the next 6 to 9 months of rapid growth.
So, Frank, I know I asked you this question, but I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around this. How are you able to do this with, I think the Simply Bitcoin team is like, we're like 10 people.
We're like half of that.
Yeah, like how are you able to do all of this rapid Navy SEAL, ultra fast expansion with only 22 or 25 employees?
Well, we've been able to do it because we've been able to see other people in the gold industry do it with the gold royalty model. And so that's what we're happy to be able to, we're executing on it. And we've demonstrated that over and over every quarter, every year. We've lived through 2 halvings. We've demonstrated for the shareholders of showing positive operating income, whereas a lot of other people took big hits. We haven't done any of these convertible debts because it creates a short position on your stock. Just to buy Bitcoin and have a huge note debt on your balance sheet. We've used our ATM. We've looked at it when we're using it we focused on driving the highest cash flow return on invested capital. So when you have a portfolio, a suite of different ASIC chips, and you have different costs of energy, and you're dealing with 5 different languages, over 9 time zones, you're always fine tuning your suite of assets. And that thought process, we huddle every day, every morning. We know all the machines, where the gaps have to be zapped anywhere in the country. We all help with that. And in the afternoon, we all huddle again to see if there's anything that's really significant. Maybe there's a delayed delivery. What can we do to move equipment around? Because we're so focused on the cash flow return on invested capital.
Yeah, and it's absolutely incredible. And one of the things that I'll say to Frank as well is, again, the ability for you guys. So could you break down in terms of how were you able to acquire the Bitfarms operation in Paraguay? What were the details behind that?
Well, they bought strongholds. They want to refocus on America. New CEO, Ben is a great guy, great young guy. And so that was his position. That became our opportunity because we want to expand in Paraguay. And we, if you recall, we kept increasing our hodl position for the past couple of years. We go back 2 years ago and Bitcoin was under 30,000. Last year, it averaged 62,000. So we were able to all of a sudden use some of our Bitcoin at 98,000, 97,000 dollars to acquire the operations and still maintain our growth. And last year we made an announcement that we did go and buy for a 100 megawatt transaction a year ago for Hive before the Bitfarms acquisition. So we already had equipment coming online. And so I think from that end, we've had to sell some Bitcoin. We've said that, but we feel really good about it because we'll be able to replace it all once we get all our operations up to rehodl and get our inventory position built up on our balance sheet again.
Incredible. Frank, one of the things that we were talking about in Mining Disrupt in Fort Lauderdale is AI and HPC integration. Hive is investing in AI and high performance computing services. How do these ventures complement your Bitcoin mining operations?
Well, AI is going to just redrive when you're thinking about building a data center and how you're moving things and what you're doing and reconfigurations. You can get right into the Bitcoin ecosystem, and then you can see the huge boom and need. Some of the real important parts that are taking place is what they call sovereign. That is, you want the data center. Texas government does not want their data center in Louisiana. They want it in Texas. Nebraska wants it in Nebraska. And you're getting states, 52 states are all thinking about the data center for the state government to be in their state. We have countries now, so focus on sovereign data centers. And you can see the value and the value change is significant on where your source of electricity are. You're seeing activist shareholders come in to go after Bitcoin miners and tell them that they have to repurpose for the HPC world because they see a long-term, more sustainable growth. So we are seeing those dynamics, but Hive has already been going down that path and building out. We hired a new president to expand that, Craig Tavares, who is involved with building Apple's data centers in Canada. He's got great experience over the decades in the space, from telecom to data center business directly, also sourcing electricity. And so that only lent itself that we could, at the beginning, mine Ethereum before they went down the dark hole of going into from proof of work to proof of stake, and really hurt the relative valuation of Bitcoin, which we warned about. And that's why we sold all our Ethereum. And we've refocused. So we knew that when you're mining Ethereum, you need GPU chips. So we developed an expertise in using a data center for GPU. And that made the stepping stone going into HPC, high performance computing, and AI much easier. So we're happy our cash flow is through $1 million a month. That's what's really important to us. We had a vision of $250,000 a year, $250,000 a quarter, $250,000 a month, and $250,000 a week. So now we're through $250,000 a week, and the next big hurdle will be getting up to that milestone of $250,000 a day in just the HPC. We believe that we're in the right traction to go there, and we see other people going down the path, but we look through the numbers and they're not as profitable as what we've been able to do so far. So touch wood.
So another thing also that perhaps people in the audience are not aware of, Hive is actually in the top 20 in terms of publicly traded companies of Bitcoin holdings. You guys hold 2,200 Bitcoin, and you were saying earlier you guys had more, but you used some of those holdings that you acquired at a much cheaper price, around the 30K level, to acquire the Bitfarms operation in Paraguay. Now,
we thought it was a good trade. You know,
it was an amazing. It's a great trade.
and we sell at 90,000 to turn around and buy a bunch of machines and electricity and a campus, a beautiful campus. So we said we can rebuild it because we've done it many times since Hive has gone public. We have used the balance sheet to sell some, then buy back and replace.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I 100% agree. It was a great trade. You guys are mining 6 Bitcoin, or you guys are going to get to 6 Bitcoin a day. Absolutely incredible. Now, Frank, final question for you, and I really appreciate you joining us today. How much profit are you making per employee?
Well, the revenue is last year we should be running around 6 million, and I believe it will grow here to over 10 million per employee. If you look at operating EBITDA, it's about 60 million a year last year, and they call a run rate of what we've announced. So that means that it's a very robust cash flow basis when you look at per employee, and it's very much like a gold royalty company.
Incredible. And let me ask you something, for Frank, because you keep bringing up I'm assuming you have experience in the gold industry, because you keep referencing gold here and there, and you using the same strategies from the gold industry to the Bitcoin mining industry.
Well, the whole idea of mining Bitcoin comes from gold mining, and both need electricity to have a final product, that to manifest something that is a final virtual asset or it's a tangible asset. You need electricity, and it's recognizing that both are decentralized assets. The big difference is one is much easier and more portable to deliver. One is more pretty to wear. And you can use it like jewelry. What a lot of people don't realize is that they are both decentralized private wealth assets. And I think that that's what's important. And there is a big part of the population that likes something tangible. The concept of virtual, something that can be transportable, that is only about half of the world. They all want to have the cash in their pocket. They don't want it in a bank. They want the cash. They want the gold. And so I just think that both of them it was easy for me to grasp Bitcoin from gold markets than if you didn't understand the gold markets. It was much more challenging to grasp Bitcoin's significance and importance for your own personal wealth, for your ability to share that wealth and send it around the world. That only came because I understood the world of gold. I wrote books on it, and as a money manager, I'm known for the world of gold.
And it was easy to make that is so fascinating to me. Anyways, Frank, it was an honor. 3,500 people, 3,545 people watching live now. Frank, thank you so much for joining us on Simply Bitcoin Live today. Really appreciate it. Someone is asking for the Hive burgundy hat in the chat.
And someone is Nico.
No.
Nathan Fast. He's in the press releases.
Nathan,
and he's not slow. He'll get them to you fast.
Nathan, I apologize beforehand for blasting your email in the chat. We'll put it in the chat. You guys could email Nathan, and he'll send you some amazing Hive merch. Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. Hi, Frank, thank you so much for joining us on today's show.
Thank you, all of you. And look up. That's how high Bitcoin's going.
Woo! Here we go. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. All right, guys, it's still going to be an amazing show. We still have tons to cover. Frank, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Guys, we're going to talk to the news segment, and Opti and I are going to have a conversation. I mean, I feel like Bitcoin's back, man. The life in Bitcoin is back. The price is pumping. I think we reached
Nico's not bearish anymore.
We reached 105K. We went through some really, really dark times, but now, really, dude, it felt like 5 years, to be perfectly frank. But anyways, guys, if you guys are enjoying today's show, smash that like button. We already broke our 200 like goal. Help us break 250 likes by the time the show ends. And guys, we still have tons to cover during the news segment. We will be right back in just a second. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSPT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store. All right, everybody, here is Optimus Fields. And again, if you use promo code SIMPLY, you won't get Opti, but you will get a 5% discount to anything on the coldcard.com store. Again, use promo code SIMPLY, 5% off. This is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market. It's the easiest one to use by far. Not your keys, not your cheese. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Here at Simply Bitcoin, we recommend the Cold Card. Get the Cold Card Q or the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store. Anyways, this is what I wanted to cover today. The news broke earlier today. David Bailey and Bitcoin native holding company Nakamoto announced merger with Kinley MD to establish a Bitcoin treasury company. So now we have three. We have the original MicroStrategy with 500,000 Bitcoin. We have Jack Mahler's company 21 partnering with Tether and SoftBank, and now we have David Bailey's company, which is called Nakamoto, the third Bitcoin holding company going into the game. As you can see, here is the scoreboard. Saylor leading the pack with 500,000 Bitcoin. You have Jack Mahler's company, or not he's the CEO and he owns equity in that company with 31,000 Bitcoin, and David Bailey's company coming in hot as well. Extremely exciting stuff, these holding companies. I will say this though, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'll say. You have a lot of these now. You have a lot of these companies now. The kind of edge is not there anymore. I think the reason as to why MicroStrategy was so successful in the beginning was for a couple of reasons. Reason number one is it was obviously, it had first mover advantage, which is huge. That's why they were able to acquire as much Bitcoin as they did. Reason number two is there was no other Bitcoin holding company. So if you were in, a publicly traded company and you were essentially barred from owning exposure to Bitcoin or spot Bitcoin, you essentially used MicroStrategy as a vehicle you use MicroStrategy as a way to get exposure to Bitcoin without breaking, your company's policies or rules or regulations or blah, 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 blah. So, now that there's multiple options, the alpha in a lot of these, I think it's a race to the bottom. That's my I was going to say professional opinion. That's my humble opinion. I think it's a race to the bottom. And in my opinion, I mean, when you have a bunch of companies competing, right? It's a little bit different than when there was just a monopoly or when there was just one big one, which was MicroStrategy. Right now, of course, this is good for Bitcoin. It allows institutional investors to get adoption or exposure to Bitcoin. Great for David Bailey. Congratulations, David Bailey. Congratulations for our friends over at BTC Inc., Bitcoin Magazine, the Bitcoin Conference. This is amazing news for them. Congratulations. But again, you can't have this strategy forever. Eventually, the alpha is not going to be there. It's just not, in my opinion, right? Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like this is this is the current thing these days, right? Michael Saylor proved the concept, absolutely crushed it from a holdings perspective, from a performance perspective. Jack Mallers comes in hot with our friends over at Tether and SoftBank as well. And then, David Bailey, another great, brilliant Bitcoin entrepreneur, essentially, copying the model. So you have essentially two MicroStrategy, the companies that have followed in the footsteps of MicroStrategy. I mean, if it were that easy, everyone's just going to end up doing the same thing. That's just not how it works, right? I think, MicroStrategy, the reason it performed the way it did is it had first mover advantage. They weren't competing against anybody else. Now that there's two companies essentially doing the exact same thing, right? I think they're taking advantage of a window. And it's not only me saying this, by the way. We have Mauricio Bartolomeo, the co-founder of Ledin, one of our partners, and he was basically saying the same thing. This is a short window, an opportunity. Where essentially people are coming in and they're launching these Bitcoin holding companies, and the reason they're so successful is because people are using it as a vehicle to get exposure to Bitcoin, where normally they wouldn't be able to get exposure to Bitcoin either through direct spot Bitcoin ETFs. Direct spot Bitcoin exposure, or through exposure through the ETFs. This also functions kind of as a leverage play on Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin goes up 20%, MicroStrategy will probably outperform it, but also to the downside as well. Anyways, but all things aside, congratulations, David Bailey. Congratulations, Jack Mallers. And following in the footsteps of the Chad himself, Michael Saylor. So let's get into some of the details, and then me and Opti will talk about it, and we'll wrap today's show. So anyways, David Bailey and Bitcoin native holding company Nakamoto announced merger with Kindly MD to establish a Bitcoin treasury. Kindly MD, a Utah-based healthcare services provider, has entered into a merger agreement with Nakamoto Holdings, a Bitcoin native holding company. The transaction, announced May 12, 2025, included $710 million in financing through a combination of private placement and convertible notes. The merger will create a publicly traded company focused on establishing a Bitcoin treasury strategy, with $510 million raised through private placement in private equity at $1 per $1.12 per share, and $200 million in senior secured convertible notes maturing in 2028. David Bailey, founder of BTC Inc. and Nakamoto Holdings, will serve as CEO of the combined entity. Tim Pickett will continue managing Kindly MD's healthcare operations, which include 4 clinics across Utah, providing integrated medical services, pain management, and mental health care. David Bailey, founder and CEO of Nakamoto, said Nakamoto's vision is to bring Bitcoin to the center of global capital markets, packaging it into equity, debt, and preferred preferred shares, and new hybrid structures that every investor can understand and own. Our mission is simple: list these instruments on every major exchange in the world. He continued, Nakamoto is building the first publicly traded conglomerate designed to accelerate that future. The financial institutions who define their chapter in history have all carried the names of their founders: the Medici, the Rothschilds, the Morgan, the Goldman. Today, we stake that legacy on Nakamoto. The PIPE financing attracted 200 investors globally, including institutional investors such as I'm sorry, guys, I can't pronounce this. Akati Ventures,
I think.
Thai Ventures, Arlington Capital, BSQ Capital Partners, Kingsway, Off the Chain Capital, Parify, RRK Capital, Van Eck, Yorkville Advisors, alongside individuals including Adam Back, Balaji, and a bunch of other well-known people as well.
Balaji, bro.
Balaji, thank you, Alfie. Anyways, you guys get the point. Another Bitcoin holding company, bullish for Bitcoin overall. I love that stance in terms of, these are the institutions of the past: Goldman, Rothschild, Morgan. These are the institutions of the future, Satoshi or Nakamoto. I think that was absolutely badass. I mean, could you imagine if the Bitcoin holding companies of today, like 21, like Strategy, like Nakamoto, replace the big boys, the existing financial elite institutions? I mean, that would be absolutely crazy from a Bitcoiner's perspective. One of the things I used to say back in the day, back in the 2016, 2017, 2018 era, I said, we're not done. We haven't won yet until, if you go to any major city here in the US and probably in Europe too, F you, Opti. Probably in Europe too, what you'll notice is you'll see the names of banks on the top of the highest buildings. And what I used to say back in the day, and I'm going to say it right now again, is what I would like to say is I want to see Bitcoin on the top of those highest buildings. And maybe it's not Bitcoin, maybe it's Bitcoin holding companies, but I would much rather see Strategy at the top of a building or Nakamoto at the top of a building than Wells Fargo or Bank of America. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, Opti, what's your take? And then we'll wrap up today's show.
Yeah, well, I think on that first point you said, kind of about these treasury companies, it is a window here, and I think there's still a little juice to squeeze out of it. I don't think it's kind of hit the wall yet. I don't think it's fully run its course, but it is feeling like it's getting to that point where you're seeing a lot of companies kind of pivot their core their core business model to go more Bitcoin. And it does seem like that might be running its course soon. It does seem like the new "I like Bitcoin, buy my stonk" kind of meme that we've seen in the past, like "I like Bitcoin, buy my shitcoin." It seems like the new iteration. And, I'm not necessarily out here buying these stocks. And I think this might be a good thing in regards to probably pulling a lot of liquidity away from the altcoins. And, for you guys waiting for the fabled, shitcoin cycle again, I don't know if that's going to happen, because a lot of the capital is going either straight into Bitcoin via ETFs or into Bitcoin treasury companies. Now, reading through that press release, it does, I think, kind of highlight just how different the 21 Capital is from Jack Mallers. It's literally core built to just be a Bitcoin treasury company instead of, pivoting like its core business model to start to acquire Bitcoin. And that's basically what separates it from Strategy and Nakamoto and or Metaplanet, et cetera, et cetera. But there, it does show, and we did see like its stock go crazy, which is like, it's pretty much a zombie company, zombie stock here. And then they announced this and it just went parabolic. So, shouts out to the Bitcoin Mag team, because they came out with a fat bag on this one. But I think we are in a new kind of like hype cycle here, and that new hype cycle is the Bitcoin stocks, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, I want people to get exposure to Bitcoin, and I want people to understand that Bitcoin is basically something they need to add to their portfolio. So if this is baby steps towards people basically accepting Bitcoin and realizing what Bitcoin is and why they need Bitcoin, then I think this is a good step moving forward. Obviously, we've heard the trope now, or the meme now, that it's not that Wall Street is entering the Bitcoin industry. It's that Bitcoin is the Trojan horse going into Wall Street. And the point remains the same, that you're seeing there is a huge hype around Bitcoin, whether it's Bitcoin ETFs or Bitcoin treasuries. And now everyone's trying to find a way to squeeze as much gain as they can out of Bitcoin. And, you know, for better or worse, I think this is a good thing. This is the path towards hyper Bitcoinization. So, you know, I think this is great for the greater, you know, narrative around Bitcoin, that, hey, you know, if you add Bitcoin to your treasury, whether you become the next MicroStrategy or not, you're doing a few things. One, you're bringing attention to your company and your stock. Two, you're preserving your purchasing power with Bitcoin. And three, maybe you are increasing shareholder value. So until that fully runs its course and we fully get saturation point, which who knows what that'll be, we'll just be looking back in hindsight and know, like, okay, this was the point when you no longer want to buy Bitcoin treasuries. I think this is a pretty solid move for the Bitcoin mag team, or rather for David Bailey and the other investors there. So it just goes to show Bitcoin is maturing and people want that Bitcoin exposure. So, hey, I would just hold, you know, the asset itself. I would just hold Bitcoin in self-custody itself. But, you know, you can either buy their stonks or you can just do what they're doing and buy Bitcoin. The choice is yours. Obviously, there's different factors here. If you have like a 401k or money in the traditional system, it's probably harder to get into Bitcoin directly, but you can still get some price exposure. So I think this is a win-win.
100%. Guys, this was today's show for May 12th, 2025. Before we wrap it up, I do want to give an extremely special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's official concert, Bitcoin 2025, guys. Look at all these speakers. Ross Ulbricht at the top, Michael Saylor, Senator Lummis, David Sachs, Bo Hines, Jack Mallers, Lynn Alden, Paolo, CEO of Tether, Adam Back, Saifedean. I mean, this is jam-packed.
Well, they also just announced, it's not on there, but they just announced
Satoshi's going to be a speaker. Like, it's going to be crazy. The Winklevi twins, man. You definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin conference. Scan the QR code to get 10% off your tickets. You definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin celebration. Me and Opti, of course, are going to be there. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. We're going to have a booth in the media segment. Hope to see you guys there. We're going to be bringing our merch. If you guys want to buy our merch, go check it out. Go check us out at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas. Scan the QR code now. Get your tickets before the prices go up. This is going to be an incredibly special conference. Ross Ulbricht is back. Ross Ulbricht is free, and Ross Ulbricht is going to be speaking at Bitcoin 2025. And also recently announced, the vice president, JD Vance, will be speaking as well. Again, promo code SIMPLY, 10% off. Anyways, my camera overheated again. I'm going to have to fix that for tomorrow. Guys, love you all. Appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed today's show, smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed today's content. I'm your host, Nico. This is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. We're Simply Bitcoin Live, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.